Todd Corpy wrote an article at churchleaders.com, and you're wondering why I say his name like that. I don't know. How would you pronounce Korpi?
Corpy?
Corpy.
You just change it a little. There's a little twinge on there.
There's a thing, Ron, my wife's maiden name is Leach, by the way.
Oh.
And when I first found that out, I was like, whoa, I bet you got a hard time in high school. She's like, I don't know what you mean. I was like, didn't people do little word associations and plays on your name? No.
Where did she go to high school?
I know, right?
I got made fun of for my last name.
Downey?
Yeah.
What did they call you? Downer?
Yeah.
Debbie Downer?
Yep.
No. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do now that I know that. It's going to be hard. If I was friends with Todd Corpy, I wouldn't be like, hey, Todd Corpy. I'd be like, what's up, Corpy? Corpy. Anyway.
Sup, Corp?
The Corpster.
The corpse.
Corpinator. Okay. He has a thesis here about changes that need to come to the church. So he's got a bunch of changes, but in order to agree with him that we need to change, here's his presupposition. I want to see if you guys agree with this. Here's what he writes. Most Christians recognize that in 2024, we're at something of an inflection point in the normal rhythms of the evangelical church life. Some attribute this to the changes wrought by COVID-19, others to political and ideological polarization, and still others to phenomena like secularization, globalization, and deconstructionism. But whatever the reasons, most can sense that change is afoot. And to flourish in the emerging present, churches must adapt. Do you think he's right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it? No explanation? Or he explained it well enough, you're saying?
I think the church is always in some state of flux, and it's become more rapid. For centuries we sang hymns, and then we had a 30-year period where we gradually switched over, and now I believe most churches sing more modern worship songs and less of the traditional hymnal. So there's been change like that. There's the change from having a piano and or an organ to having a quote-unquote rock band in the front of your stage. There's been a change in, you used to wear your Sunday best, a suit and tie or a dress for ladies, and now you wouldn't be surprised to see wearing, shorts and a tank top in the summer, or even sweats. Sweatpants girl probably goes to church like that.
You mean Debbie Downer?
I'll spit out my coffee. Oh, wow.
But I think the point he's making is this is a unique, even more dramatic shift that requires us to change more dramatically.
Okay.
And I think he's saying that because for the first time in American history, right, Christian morals and ethics are becoming passé. They're like, you guys had this thing for about 250 years. We don't like that anymore. Is that, I'm being melodramatic, but in a sense, that's true, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we no longer have that presupposition of everybody's kind of like on our team.
Right.
Or at least sympathetic to our team.
Right. Yeah.
So he's got a bunch of suggestions on how we can shift in 2024, missional shifts that will help us flourish in the present. He says, I want to suggest 8 shifts I believe churches must begin to make in order to thrive. Must begin to make these in order to thrive. We won't go through all 8, but there's a couple. One of them, he says, we must go from digitally primitive to digitally savvy. Digital technology, he said, is moving at a rapid pace. With the rapid adoption of technologies like artificial intelligence and spatial computing for use in everyday life, Christians have historically been at the forefront of adopting technologies for the purpose of sharing the gospel, like the Roman roadway system was used to deliver Paul's letters, the printing press, broadcast media. Christians were cutting edge on that, to be honest with you. Some of the first radio stations in America were Christian. There's tremendous potential for innovation for churches, missional practitioners, and Christian missionaries alike. For this innovation to take place, many churches must shift from seeing digital ministry as a peripheral component of ministry to an integral and necessary way to engage people where they now spend a significant portion of their time. So he's saying we need to stop thinking of it. Yeah, we do have a live stream. We've got a website. You could give online, to making digital ministry like at the core of what we do.
Yeah, I agree.
Why?
I was searching for a church until very recently because we just moved here. And before I go to a church, I'm going to do my research on it. If they don't have a good website where I can tell something about their theology and the church culture, I won't even bother visiting.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very true.
Yeah.
Lauren, do you agree with this one?
Yeah, I agree with Daria. I'm almost always going to look at their website first. And if it's kind of clunky and old, I'm not going to go.
Because my secondary assumption is there's nobody around my age.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the other hard one would be, right? So we're looking at the way social media works, and Lauren is just a connoisseur of funny things on the internet, and you'll send me little short videos.
Yeah.
I just laugh so hard, and then you'll meet somebody at church. I've got a church. We have a live stream. You should try it. You look at the live stream, and it's circa 1995.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The camera work is terrible.
Yeah.
The audio is even worse. Now, somebody who watches a beautifully created but raw looking YouTube video, and that's how they consume the internet or TikTok, they're not going to watch your dumb service. I hate to call it that, but why would they engage in that? Why would they think of you as relevant in today's society if it looks like your grandfather made it?
Mm-hmm.
Grandpas are awesome, by the way, Ron.
Thank you.
Especially if we're talking about, Lauren and I are quote unquote churched. We're talking about reaching people that have never been to church. You need to meet them where they are. You need to make this look like something they could potentially enjoy and get something out of. And then the more important things will come once they start to adapt to church culture.
And it's not that you would suddenly stop doing liturgy or stop doing your order of service any similar way, but it would be like, what I think he's saying is you've got to be digitally relevant. The world operates in this way. People spend hours a day on their smartphones and their computers. If we're not engaging in that part of the world, goodbye.
Now, here's the dilemma I see. Since the vast majority of churches are 150 people or less.
Right.
And since the younger you go, the less likely those people are to be attending church. We see that drop in, Gen Xers were less, millennials even less, Gen Z even less, Gen Alpha, we make them come to church with us. But so who's going to do this? Presumably a volunteer, because your church is small and doesn't have a big financial reserve to pay for a pastor, a secretary, and now video team. Plus the cost of the equipment to do this. There's a lot involved that maybe it's better if they don't try than to put up a grandpa looking video.
But to Daria's point, I agree with you, Ron. It's a significant challenge for a small church.
Mm-hmm.
But to Daria's point, you will just eventually have to pick the person who closes and locks the doors when you shut down. If you create a scenario in which younger people have just zero interest in even trying because you're not relevant. Now, to be the guy, let's say I'm in charge. If I'm in charge, I would say, okay, church full of people, small church. You want to do a renovation in the church. You can ask for volunteers. You want to build a new church building, maybe add an addition. You're just going to have volunteers do that? The guy in the nursery, have him come over? No. You're going to do a fundraising drive.
Right.
And you're going to hire contractors.
So there's money involved.
So guess how we solve this problem? It's not that hard. You say, this is important. We're going to either allocate a significant portion of our budget to fix this problem and be relevant digitally, or we're going to do a fundraising drive and we're going to hire professionals to do it. Done.
Not every
Bingo.
fundraising drive is successful.
That's correct.
People have to catch the vision. And if your congregation is older, they might not see the vision. They may still think, you know what? If these young whippersnappers would just show up to church, they'd see how good it was.
And those people are going to be very disappointed because Gen Z does seem to be searching for something, but they're searching for authenticity and they're searching for people that can meet them where they are and not talk down to them. So yeah, Ron, you're right. There are plenty of people that are going to think like that, but like Brian said, they will probably be faced with closing their doors at some point because a lot of congregations are aging and they're not sure or they don't care about reaching people that are not in their generation.
And someone texted saying, do we run the risk of turning church into another form of entertainment? I would say no, because by asking the question, you're misunderstanding how much technology would be integrated in what you do.
And we're not saying more smoke and lights and lasers and all that. It's just the simple, authentic, acoustic worship, if you will be transmitted over the internet in a technically savvy, appealing way.
And what you do is you're fully integrating modern technology into the church life so that it's not a thing that you point to. Look at us and our digital things. What you're doing is it's there. It's like the same as, you've got that cool altar up front. It's there. What do you talk about it? Look at our altar. No, it's there. It's part of what you do.
Or, I mean, even someone that's making high impact reels based on Bible verses or a testimony or something like that, that will reach people. And they may not come to your church, but they might get saved or at least have some productive questions.
Yes. But it's so part of the fabric of what you do as a church. It's not something you point to all the time. Hey, everybody, look at what we're doing over here. No, you just, we do that. Anyway, moving on. Integrate it. Don't make it the thing. Jesus is the thing. We're looking at an article from Todd Corpy at Church Leaders where he's talking about how we're really at like a turning point in American culture for a lot of reasons. If you're just tuning in, you missed all the reasons, but there are some, and the team seems to think he may be right on this. So he's suggesting some missional shifts, and that's churchy talk for saying big changes and how we approach doing church life. Here's the next one I think is worth looking at. He says we should shift from information dissemination to environment shaping.
What does that mean?
Information dissemination to environment shaping. So, okay, he says this. Churches must consider shifting our relationship with content as a whole. For centuries, a crucial function of church leadership was to be holders and dispensers of biblical and theological knowledge. Clergy were among the most well-read and well-educated, and were thus looked to for the grand answers of Christian life. But the internet age has brought about a seismic democratization of information. Now a teenager with an iPhone holds more information in their pocket than our ancestors could read in a lifetime.
Holds it. Doesn't consume it, but he holds it.
But what I will say as just a quick caveat is I've been continually shocked at, like, my kids know about current events before I have a chance to tell them. And my kids have heard about theological issues we never talked about because of TikTok. So he says in 2024, pastors would do well to hold the old paradigm of dispensing religious knowledge with an open hand. He's not saying stop. Hold it with an open hand. Instead, we need to think about what it means to cultivate environments of transformation. By environments, I'm not referring to high production services. I'm referring to creating rhythms of spaces where people can learn from one another, grow together, and encounter the presence of the Holy Spirit. You may not be able to give people all the content they want, but you can give them something we all crave, that you're in a unique position to help cultivate healthy, transformational community.
Yeah.
Are we sold? It's a big shift. This is why I like talking about this one.
I'm
It's a big shift.
struggling to see how that would look or exactly what he means.
I don't know that he has a perfect picture of what it would look like, but he's like saying the days of where we need a pastor to be the one standing up in front and primarily only being the dispenser of information. He said those days are gone where we have to start presuming. And this is a radio shift that our station manager, Josh, and I figured out together many years ago. It used to be that radio was the place where you went to find information. We had to shift our thinking to not only do people already know most of what we're talking about or heard whatever the story is, but they might even be more knowledgeable about it than we are. But in the olden days, Ron, that was not the case.
No.
If you hadn't read the paper yet, you didn't know what in the world was happening.
Right. There was usually a morning paper and an evening paper in a big city. And in between there was the radio and the TV news, which was at 6 and 11, but you didn't have it all day.
Now, I learned, I'm going to be sharing something pretty controversial coming to Northeast Ohio, perhaps, starting at 7 o'clock. And as in my own life, when I've been researching this thing, I learned about it for the first time a few days ago. I thought this was like breaking news. Every time I've brought it up to people in my personal life, they've heard about it before. And I'm always disappointed. I'm always like, oh, you heard about that? Okay. And then they share some stuff with me I didn't know. Now, I think what he's saying is since that's the case in real life, that reality, we have to start transferring that to church life. Okay, go.
The problem I have with that is pastors are well learned. They went to school for this. They have, I mean, sometimes they'll be well versed in like the Greek and the Hebrew potentially so that they can help, because the English translation is not always the best. I think the job of a pastor is to help make scriptures more accessible and to help shed light in ways that your average congregant would really struggle to grasp. I mean, I understand where he's coming from, but in my mind, that's like, well, you don't need to go to a doctor because we have WebMD. Just because there's endless
That's a good point.
information at our fingertips doesn't mean your average person knows what to do with it.
Amen.
But you know what? He might be saying something like, and I'm speaking for him here, but why wouldn't it mean something like, okay, forget about the 45-minute sermon in some churches or 2 hours in other or 20-minute in others. Forget that. Cut it down to 10 minutes. Get some good theological information. And then you cultivate an environment in your church where people are treating it more like for history nerds, a salon in the Enlightenment, which would be a cafe where people are going to now discuss these things and grapple with them and see how they apply to their real lives.
That's what Sunday school and small groups are for. I don't think we should necessarily get rid of the format we know on Sunday morning.
Although Sunday school, a lot of times, and I don't disagree with you, Daria. I'm just throwing this out there.
We're just going back and forth.
Yeah. Sunday school is pretty similar, right? Sit down,
It depends on
and I'm going to teach you.
It depends on what kind of church you're going to and how they structure. Maybe different Sunday schools have different structures.
And then small group is we're going to get together and do community now. I think what he's trying to say, maybe, is we create environments that are inherently community-centric, not necessarily you sit and listen.
Mm-hmm.
I would see it as a different service. You would have your traditional, preacher, preach, worship leaders, sing, whatever service. But there are people who are going to still want that. But for those who want the environment, open up a time like that, like you say, the salon. Have it, your little coffee shop or whatever open. Everybody can come in and bring your questions, and pastor and the elders will be there, and you can round robin it. But ultimately, the pastor will be watching over because, if you follow TikTok, everybody's going to be drinking bleach when they get sick. So you don't want the spiritual equivalent of that.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of like no guidance, because you can come up with almost any idea in your head and probably find some scripture taken out of context to support that.
Mm-hmm.
Could he mean, though, like a short teaching on an important concept followed by a deeper discussion of personal, practical application with questions and interaction?
I don't know. I guess each church would have to figure that out for themselves.
And I appreciate your pushback on this because I think a lot of people are thinking the same thing, Daria. But Ron, I could easily see, remember before you were talking about the contemporary worship shift?
Mm-hmm.
It's not beyond the realm of imagination that suddenly, remember it used to be, well, if you want traditional, come at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
But contemporary is the rest of the time. I could see us shifting to totally different approaches to Sunday morning worship and teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like that old style, you could come earlier.
Yeah.
It could be. And if it worked and it created an environment that would bring about life transformation and salvation, why wouldn't we do it?
Right.
I think that's kind of what he's trying to get at. Is like, culture's changed so much. We're doing the same thing we used to do, and isn't insanity doing the same thing twice and expecting a different result? Like, what if we totally change how we do this? Not in a way that dishonors the Lord or changes the scriptures or our moral thinking or anything like that, or theology, but changes the way we engage. I don't know. I like that kind of thinking.